Nevada, Las Vegas, 1980. The neon lights of the Las Vegas Strip are designed to do one thing: distract you from the mathematics. Behind every blinking bulb and every digital chime is a calculated certainty that, over time, the house will take your money. The most profitable weapon in this arsenal has always been the slot machine. These are the world's most expensive machines, not just because of what they cost to build, but because of what they generate. In a single year, a modern casino can pull in hundreds of millions of dollars from these machines alone. They are considered the unbeatable fortresses of the gambling world. But in the early 1980s, a man named Tommy Glenn Carmichael discovered that these fortresses were built on a lie. He realized that no matter how complex the computer inside was, it still had to interact with the physical world. And if you could manipulate that physical interaction, the machine would have no choice but to give you everything it owned. This is the story of a 40-year war between a lone mechanic and a billion-dollar industry. It is a story of how a $5 piece of scrap metal defeated the most advanced security systems on the planet, and how the slot king eventually became the only person who could save the casinos from themselves. To understand Tommy Carmichael, you have to understand the era he stepped into. In 1980, Las Vegas was in a state of transition. The old-school mechanical, one-armed bandits were being phased out in favor of electronic units. These new machines were supposed to be the end of cheating. They didn't rely on physical gears and springs that could be shaken or jammed. They used microprocessors. They were supposed to be godlike in their fairness. Tommy Carmichael was living in Edmond, Oklahoma at the time, running a struggling television repair shop. He was a man who saw the world through circuits and soldering irons. When his friend Ray Ming showed up with a miniature slot machine and a top-bottom joint, Tommy didn't see a gambling device. He saw a flawed circuit. The top-bottom joint was a simple tool, a piece of spring steel and a guitar wire. It was designed to be inserted into the machine's coin chute to create a physical bridge between the electrical contacts. When Tommy first arrived in Las Vegas with this tool, he was nervous. He walked into the Regency Casino, a small joint away from the main strip, and approached a 5-cent machine. He inserted the tool, felt for the internal switch, and suddenly, the machine began to vomit nickels. It didn't stop until the hopper was empty. In that moment, the world changed for Tommy. He realized that the security of a slot machine was an illusion. Over the next few days, he moved from casino to casino, cashing in thousands of dollars in small change. He was addicted to the power of it, the feeling of being the only person in the room who knew the machine's secret. But the industry was watching. The top-bottom joint was a brute force tool, and it left traces. In 1985, Tommy was caught at a casino in Las Vegas. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison. For most people, that would have been the end. But for Tommy, prison was just a 5-year research period. While Tommy was behind bars, the slot machine industry underwent a total revolution. They moved into the computer age. They introduced optical sensors. These sensors used infrared light to count coins as they dropped into the tray. The industry believed they had finally created a closed-loop system. There were no more electrical contacts to short-circuit. There were no more gears to jam. When Tommy was released in 1987, he walked into a casino and realized his old tools were pieces of junk. He was a dinosaur in a digital world. But Tommy had a specific kind of genius. He understood that every improvement in technology creates a new, more specific vulnerability. He spent months studying the new machines. He eventually went to a showroom and pretended to be a buyer. He asked the technicians deep technical questions under the guise of wanting to maintain his own machines. He learned that the heart of the new security was a tiny infrared eye. This eye sat in the payout chute. When a coin passed by, it blocked the light, telling the computer that 1 unit of currency had been dispensed. Tommy went back to his garage and began prototyping. He needed a tool that could reach the eye without being seen. He needed something flexible, thin, and strong. He took a piece of spring steel and fashioned it into a long, thin rod with a tiny curved hook at the end. He called it the monkey paw. The monkey paw was a work of art. Tommy would sit at a machine, appearing to be just another gambler. He would slide the paw into the air vent of the machine. Because he knew the internal blueprints by heart, he could blindly navigate the tool through the wires and components, until the hook sat directly in front of the optical sensor. By blocking the sensor, he created a blind spot in the machine's brain. When he hit a small win, the machine would trigger the payout motor. The coins would start falling. But because the monkey paw was blocking the sensor's vision, the computer thought 0 coins had been paid out. The machine would keep the motor running, desperately trying to count the first coin. Tommy would sit there as hundreds, then thousands of dollars in coins poured into his bucket. He had successfully hacked the machine's perception of reality. For nearly a decade, Tommy was a ghost. He built a crew. They weren't just hitting small casinos anymore. They were hitting the biggest names on the strip. They were making tens of thousands of dollars a night. Tommy was living a life of luxury, but he was also obsessed with the next machine. In the mid-1990s, the industry struck back. They introduced the world's most expensive slot machines. These were the first truly modern units, fully digital with no air vents, reinforced steel casings, and redundant sensors. The payout chutes were redesigned with baffles, zigzagging paths that made it physically impossible to reach the sensors with a wire or a monkey paw. The industry declared these machines the end of cheating. Tommy viewed this as a personal challenge. He realized that if he couldn't touch the sensor with metal, he would have to touch it with something that could travel through the baffles. Light. He knew that optical sensors worked on a specific frequency of infrared light. If he could overload the sensor with a different light source, he might be able to trigger a system error. He spent months in his workshop, experimenting with different bulbs and batteries. He eventually created the light wand. It was a tiny high-intensity bulb on the end of a very thin, flexible fiber optic wire. It looked like a medical tool, but it was a weapon. The light wand was the ultimate exploit. Tommy would insert the wand into the payout chute. He didn't need to hook anything or short-circuit anything. He just needed to get the bulb close to the internal sensors. When he clicked a small switch in his pocket, the wand would pulse a high-intensity flash of light. This didn't just block the sensor, it blinded it. The machine's logic board would experience a massive surge of data. In many of the early digital models, this caused the computer to default into a payout mode as a failsafe. It was a logic bomb delivered via a light bulb. The beauty of the light wand was that it was virtually undetectable. A security guard could be standing 3 feet away and never see the flash of light inside the machine. There was no physical damage. No wires were cut. The machine simply appeared to be lucky, but the scale of Tommy's success was his undoing. The FBI began to notice a pattern. Casinos were reporting anomalous payouts that didn't match the statistical probability of the machines. They started a multi-year investigation, using undercover agents and advanced surveillance. They eventually realized that the luck followed a specific group of people. In 1996, the FBI raided Tommy's home. They found his workshop, his blueprints, and dozens of prototypes of the monkey paw and the light wand. Tommy was sentenced to prison again, but this time, the stakes were different. The gaming industry was terrified. They realized that their unhackable machines had been defeated by a man with a light bulb. They also realized that Tommy knew more about their machine's vulnerabilities than their own engineers did. When Tommy was released, he was added to the Black Book, the list of people banned for life from every casino in Nevada. It is a legal form of exile. If he so much as steps onto a casino floor, he can be arrested for trespassing. But in a move of pure irony, a strange negotiation began. The casinos didn't just want Tommy out of the picture, they wanted his brain. The man who spent 40 years breaking slot machines began working to Tommy-proof the industry. He helped develop a device called the Protector, a sophisticated internal sensor that can detect the specific light frequencies and physical movements of a cheater's tools. He became the architect of the very walls that keep people like him out. The story of Tommy Glenn Carmichael is a perfect case study in the evolution of security. It shows that no system is ever truly closed. Whether it is a mechanical gear or a digital sensor, every machine has a point where it must interact with the world. Tommy's genius was finding that point and applying the right amount of pressure. He proved that the world's most expensive machines are only as strong as the human logic behind them. Today, slot machines are more like high-performance servers than gambling devices. They use encrypted data, random number generators that are checked millions of times a second, and physical barriers that are tested against every known tool. The era of the monkey paw is over, but the spirit of Tommy Carmichael lives on in the Red Queen hypothesis of the gambling world. The house has to keep running faster and faster just to stay ahead of the next Tommy Carmichael. Because somewhere out there, in a garage or a basement, someone is looking at the newest unbreakable machine and seeing a puzzle. Tommy's legacy is a reminder that the house always wins, not because the games are fair, but because the house is the only player that can hire its enemies. Tommy went from the man who broke the machines to the man who made them whole. He is a permanent fixture in the history of Las Vegas, a man who looked at the most expensive technology on Earth and decided it wasn't good enough. As the slot machines of today continue to chime and flash, they do so with a level of security that was bought with Tommy's crimes. He didn't just win money, he changed the way the world's most profitable machines think.